My sister and I were simultaneously rendered mute by poison. There existed but a single antidote, and she, with audacity, swallowed it whole before I could react. From that moment, she captivated the capital with her enchanting melodies, ultimately securing her place in the Eastern Palace as the crown princess. Little did she know that the Empress, deeming her a performer who jeopardized the nation, cast her into the cold palace, where she met a tragic demise in the Lotus Pond. As for me, bereft of speech, I was compelled to marry a military general. After 3 years of defending the borders, my husband achieved great merit, and thus I was honored with the title of first-class noble consort. However, when I ventured to the cold palace to visit my sister, she ensnared me within a beast's cage, where I was brutally devoured. Upon regaining consciousness, I beheld an antidote before me. My sister pushed the vial toward my lips with a frenzied gaze, urging me to consume it. Unperturbed, I grasped the pill, realizing that at long last, I could speak for myself. Yet, my heart ached for my sister. She chose to forsake the path to paradise and instead recklessly forced her way into hell. Here lies but a single antidote. Have you two sisters made your decision? My father's eyes darted between me and Chiwana. Typically haughty and overbearing, she now thrust the antidote before me, her gaze wild with urgency. You must eat it. I casually lifted the pill, casting a nonchalant glance in her direction, and noticed a glint of cunning in her eyes. I suspected as much. She too had been reborn. Yet, my mother shot me a venomous glance, hastily advising her, Wana, with a selection of candidates imminent, which is more crucial to you, your future or your sister? Can you not discern this trivial matter? I raised my eyelids towards my father, who averted his gaze, feigning ignorance. Seeing my reluctance to take the antidote, Chiwana, in a fit of frustration, hastily inscribed, Mother, of course, my sister is of utmost importance. We shall discuss the selection matter later. My father's expression brimmed with pride. Wana is indeed a daughter I can take pride in. He urged me to emulate my sister, never to forget her benevolence. I tilted my head back and swallowed the pill, obediently bowing my head in acquiescence. After a moment, witnessing the rapid onset of the antidote's effects, my parents' eyes reflected both relief and anguish, filled with sorrow for my sister. I am Chu Yuna, the twin of Chu Wana. My father, the Minister of Rights, publicly claimed to treat his two daughters equally. Yet, when it came to matters of fortune, it was always Chu Wana who reaped the benefits. Had it not been for the notorious poisoning incident, I doubted I would have even laid eyes on this antidote. In my past life, Chu Wana seized the antidote for herself. With a captivating song, she ensnared the prince's heart and was chosen as his concubine. However, her continual indulgence in merriment with the prince led to the Empress' discontent. During the Empress's birthday celebration, she performed, only to be condemned by the Empress for her alluring melodies as a threat to the nation, resulting in her confinement to the cold palace and a tragic end in the Lotus Pond. As for me, I was hastily betrothed to a young general and accompanied him to the frontier after our marriage. 3 years later, he sought rewards for his military achievements, securing for me the title of first-class noble consort. The Empress even broke protocol to bestow upon me the title of princess, commissioning a residence in my honor. Society deemed me, the mute, remarkably fortunate, as I shared a profound bond with the general and enjoyed the royal favor, my future seemingly limitless. Yet, when I visited the cold palace to see my sister, she ensnared me in a trap, rendering me unconscious and casting me into the beast garden, where I was devoured by the Creaturesa memory that still haunts my mind. I closed my eyes, the echoes of her anguished screams resonating in my ears. Chu Yuna, it should have been me basking in glory. How dare you surpass me? You shall perish. Perish. Until the unwelcome voice of my parents broke through. Now that you have recovered, you may leave. Do not add to your sister's distress. Slowly reopening my eyes, I released my clenched fists, observing the smugness in Chu Wana's gaze. I bowed slightly. I take my leave. Stepping beyond the threshold, a cold smirk graced my lips. If she yearned so desperately to marry the general and ascend to the title of princess, I would grant her wish. Yet, I pondered, would she still be so eager to compete with me if she knew that this fortune had cost me half my life? 2. My sister, rendered mute, has compelled our family to send me to the palace for the selection of maidens. As in my previous life, our father, a minister in the Department of Rights, summoned a renowned courtesan to instruct me in the art of singing and acting. I acquired the skills with remarkable finesse, surpassing even my sister's previous performances. Consequently, my father began to regard me with newfound esteem. At a grand banquet, adorned in exquisite garments, I captivated the audience with my melodious voice and graceful dancing, emerging as a standout among my peers. Naturally, this incited envy from others. Swiftly, rumors circulated that I frequented brothels and had already lost my virtue. Some claimed I possessed an innate charm that could spell disaster for the nation. Others resorted to tampering with my food, aiming to poison me. All these trials mirrored those endured by Chu in my past life. Though I was mute then, I fiercely defended her, even risking my own life by testing the poison, nearly succumbing to death. Yet now, when I face these troubles, she feigns ignorance, even reveling in my plight from a distance. While I am crushed under the weight of public opinion, she has once again become the apple of our parents' eyes. They conspired to arrange a commendable marriage for her, even announcing a lavish dowry to betroth her to the eldest son of the minister's residence. This young gentleman is strikingly handsome, eloquent, and of noble bearing, yet my sister remains disinterested. She discarded the marriage proposal and instead fixated on persuading our father to take her to play polo. The muddy polo field is hardly a refined venue. Ladies of the capital cherish their status and would never venture there without pressing matters. Fearing our father's disapproval, she even fabricated a dream in which a divine being revealed her destiny lay not in the minister's estate, but on the polo field. Believing there to be a remedy for her muteness, our parents acquiesced. Only I understood that her true desire was to encounter General Zheng. In this life, she forsakes the role of the crown prince's consort, aspiring instead to be a favored, titled princess. In the past, Chu held herself in high regard, facing ostracism and isolation. Now, she has lowered herself, actively seeking the favor of other noble ladies, and has gained numerous intimate friends. Even the mischievous little princess has been charmed by her. It is rumored that my sister selflessly offered me the antidote, willingly becoming mute herself, even striking me in front of others. I protested, yet our father punished me by making me kneel in the ancestral hall for offending the princess. I had done nothing wrong, yet I bore the brunt of her actions. After 3 days of kneeling, my legs grew numb. Chu, accompanied by her friends, came to deliver me food. Upon opening the food box, I discovered the meal had spoiled. The steamed bun contained foul stones from a latrine, and the chicken was a dead frog from the lotus pond. When Chu saw I refused to eat, she feigned sorrow and shed a few tears. The little princess, unable to bear her weeping, ordered the servants to force-feed me. It was only when I vomited blood that they finally expressed satisfaction. I could see clearly that Chu, hidden behind the little princess, brimmed with triumph. What does it matter if you possess a melodious voice? In this life, I can easily manipulate you. 3. After emerging from the ancestral hall, I fell gravely ill. Just as I regained my health, the day to select a consort for the crown prince arrived. Although my sister remained voiceless, she delightedly frequented the polo grounds and explored the mountains. The selection was presided over by the Empress herself, who specifically called me forth to inquire. Chu, are you aware of your crimes? Terrified, I hastily kneeled, unable to raise my gaze. This humble girl knows not. Please, your majesty, grant me your discernment. The Empress smirked coldly. It is said your voice is enchanting, your allure innate. Yet to me, it is but a siren song. A calamity for the realm. Seize her, tear her mouth apart, and cast her into the lotus pond to feed the fish. I trembled, raising my head to plead. Your Majesty, I did not dare to argue. Strike her. Anxiety gripped my heart. Why had I incurred the Empress's wrath? In my previous life, it was my sister who, after becoming the crown prince's consort, angered the Empress by singing a lament on her birthday, a song composed by the Emperor in memory of the late Empress. Now the Empress's rival. Yet now, before I had even showcased my talent, the Empress sought my life. It was utterly incomprehensible. Catching sight of the smug little princess, I realized the conspiracy at play. As the palace maids and eunuchs dragged me away, I resisted. Mama struck me several times. Do you think your voice can enchant the sovereign? Do you aspire to be the crown prince's consort? The Empress, visibly impatient, waved her hand. Take her away swiftly. I do not wish for the crown prince to see her. Suppressing my panic, I hurriedly bowed deeply to the Empress. This humble girl is of little worth. Yet I have grave matters to disclose to your Majesty. Matters of state. The little princess interjected, "Your Majesty, do not trust this seductress." Hearing the mention of state affairs, the empress hesitated. I requested paper and ink to inscribe my revelations, folding it neatly before presenting it to her. She withdrew from the crowd, and moments later, her eyes widened in astonishment. "Is this true?" "Indeed, Your Majesty. Should I speak falsely, I willingly accept death." After a long pause, the empress burned the note, gesturing for me to leave as a sign of her clemency. The selection of consorts commenced officially. Not only was I not disqualified, but I also garnered the empress's favor. Upon completing my song, the crown prince personally tied a fragrant sachet around my waist. The little princess's eyes flared with rage. I understood she would relay everything to my sister. Indeed, upon returning home, I was intercepted at the door. My mother commanded me to kneel, intending to discipline me. Chu feigned an accidental encounter, accompanied by the little princess. Seeing the princess's presence only fueled my mother's anger, and she struck my calves with great force using a vine. After the little princess departed, my father returned home, beaming with satisfaction. Upon seeing me on the sickbed, his demeanor shifted to one of alarm. Chu pretended to bring me medicine, but was met with a slap that sent her sprawling. "You wretched girl. While you and your mother have treated her poorly, now that Yun'er is on the verge of becoming the crown prince's consort, how could you be so petty?" My sister was taken aback by this sudden slap. She had never anticipated that our father, who usually indulged her, would strike her for my sake. She gritted her teeth, lowering her head, the suppressed hatred evident in her eyes. I was well aware of her animosity towards me. Pretending to be frightened, I nestled into our father's embrace, reporting, "Father, my sister looks at me with the eyes of an enemy. After all, she was the one who willingly gave me the antidote. Could she be regretting it?" My father, holding me protectively, chastised her. "Your sister has finally gained the empress's favor, yet you incite the little princess to stir trouble. Do you think I, as the minister of rights, am too complacent?" Chu ground her teeth in frustration. She wished to retort, yet her words faltered, and beads of sweat formed on her forehead. I feigned concern for her, tugging at our father's sleeve. "Let it go, we are all family." My father praised my sisterly affection and understanding, proclaiming me a fortunate individual destined to bring glory to our family. He cast a disapproving glance at the tearful Chu before storming out. Only she and I remained in the room. She swiftly approached the table, seizing paper and pen to write. "Had I not relinquished the antidote to you, how could you have earned the empress's and the crown prince's favor? Do you truly believe you can become the crown prince's consort? Relish your triumph for now. I shall turn the tide and ensure you are beneath my heel." I gazed at the imprint of her fingers on her face, raising an eyebrow. "Very well, let us see how this unfolds." Considering the days ahead, General Zheng would soon return to the capital. After fulfilling his duties, he would visit the polo grounds. In my previous life, I had met him there and, by chance, we had forged a lifelong bond. In this life, Chu surely fantasizes about marrying General Zheng and being bestowed with the title of a noble princess. Watching her figure disappear through the door, I retrieved a hairpin and extinguished the candle's flame. In the darkness, I smirked. I wonder if my sister, this delicate flower, can endure the bridal night with the general. On the day General Zheng returned to court, the emperor was in high spirits and graciously bestowed a polo match at the royal horse grounds. Yet, my sister was absent from the festivities, leaving her close friends and even the little princess puzzled about her whereabouts. However, I knew precisely where she was. Outside the men's changing tent, a curious servant was eagerly peeking in. Chu exhibited remarkable audacity. Upon seeing General Zheng's arrival, her spirit soared. Zhengyi reined in his horse before me, halting in front of Chu. The youthful general's gaze was icy. Clad in dark garments with ink-black hair cascading down, his brows arched sharply, and his phoenix-like eyes radiated an imposing presence without a hint of anger. Chu was utterly entranced. Meanwhile, I, concealed behind the trees, trembled involuntarily. He carelessly flicked the reins, and Chu, oblivious, was caught by the neck. "What? You're a woman?" Disguised as a servant, Chu flushed with embarrassment, attempting to flee but was swiftly caught by a large hand. Meeting Zheng Ye's profound gaze, her face turned crimson. She merely shook her head, refusing to utter a word. Are you injured? Tears cascaded down Chu Wanner's cheeks, her fragile demeanor causing Zheng Yi to momentarily catch his breath. Yet, he quickly scoffed, appearing to see through her act. Which family's daughter seeks to entangle herself with me? The general. However, Chu Wanner stubbornly bit her lip, unwilling to speak. Her demeanor bore a striking resemblance to my past self. Just then, a few matrons approached, greeting him and inquiring about the commotion. Is the servant service so lacking? This old servant has a method to discipline them, and will ensure they comply. These matrons from noble families each bore the weight of lives lost. If they got their hands on her, could anything good come of it? Chu Wanner was horrified, shaking her head vigorously, her tears evoking my sympathy. Ultimately, Zhang Ye's heart softened. He waved his hand, allowing her to enter the tent with him. I crept forward a few steps, hiding outside the tent.
Moments later.
Zhang Yi questioned her. Why are you dressed as a man? After a brief silence, he frowned upon reading a note. You are the daughter of the Minister of Rights? I have heard of your exceptional talent, yet why can you not speak? Chu Wanner hastily scribbled down her explanation.
Zheng Yi understood her intentions.
Since ancient times, there has been the tale of Kong Rong sharing pears. Today, we have Miss Chu offering medicine. Her sincerity is indeed commendable. Listening to the increasingly labored breaths from within the tent, I realized Chu Wanner's plan had succeeded. Who would have thought that the little princess would arrive here accompanied by her attendants? I stood to block her, but she pushed me aside, inadvertently causing the tent screen to fall. Upon witnessing the two entangled figures on the white fox fur blanket, the little princess let out a piercing scream. In the next moment, she lashed out at Zheng Yi with her golden whip. You, shameless rogue! It turned out the little princess harbored feelings for Zheng Yi and anticipated his return to the capital to seek the emperor's approval for their union. Yet, unexpectedly, he could not contain himself and was caught in a scandal with a servant girl. Ignoring the searing pain coursing through me, I knelt and bowed my head, pleading for the princess to forgive my sister. She did not mean to. Only then did the little princess realize that the one entangled with her beloved was her dear friend. Overcome with anger, she fainted on the spot. I hurriedly escorted her back to the palace, and upon learning of the incident, the empress was greatly displeased. With the affair now laid bare, the emperor hastily arranged a marriage to uphold his subjects' honor. The wedding was set for 3 days hence. Upon returning home, my father, the Minister of Rights, was so enraged that he threatened to sever ties with my sister. Meanwhile, my mother, who had always protected her, personally administered punishment, replacing the usual willow branches with thorns. Chu Wanner's calves were left bloodied and bruised. This wedding was conducted in a haphazard manner, transforming what should have been a glorious occasion into a source of shame for both the Zheng and Chu families. On the eve of the wedding, Chu Wanner tightly grasped my wrist, forcing me into the study. From the fiery intensity in her eyes, I discerned her fury. I smiled faintly, prying her fingers open one by one. Sister, is this not what you desired? Had I not facilitated this, General Zheng would have undoubtedly become a prince consort by now. Chu Wanner was taken aback. She swiftly wrote on a piece of paper, I was meant to be adorned in a splendid bridal gown, yet now, thanks to you, I have become the laughingstock of the nation. Chu Yunner, wait for it, I shall ensure you pay dearly in the future. In the future? I raised an eyebrow, casually tossing her note into the fire. I took out my handkerchief to wipe my hands. Then I shall await that day. Just then, an invitation arrived from the Crown Prince, inviting me to enjoy a performance. I smiled apologetically at her. Sister, how swiftly does retribution arrive? The Crown Prince awaits me. You may take your time. The spring scenery of the pear garden was tranquil. On my way, I overheard 2 palace attendants whispering. I just saw the Crown Prince and the daughter of Minister Liu holding hands and flying kites in the small garden. What of Miss Chu? I hear her sister is quite reckless. Surely such stock cannot be any better, which is why the Empress holds her in disdain. I feigned ignorance, hastening my steps. The Empress selected a tune from the West Chamber. Meanwhile, the Crown Prince exchanged glances with the minister's daughter seated beside him. I recalled that during the selection of candidates, she had ranked second, just below me. After the performance concluded, the Empress suddenly asked me, Yunner, do you wish to be the Crown Prince's secondary consort or his primary consort? My heart tightened, yet my demeanor remained composed. Bowing respectfully, I replied, Yunar knows her own shortcomings and is unworthy of being a secondary consort, let alone the crown princess. A flicker of surprise crossed the Empress's eyes. You are quite different from your audacious sister. Rise and respond. I dared not, and it was the little princess who helped me up. She appeared much improved, her vitality restored, and no longer hostile towards me, even speaking on my behalf. Mother, I find Yunar quite suitable for my crown prince brother. The Empress's expression darkened, prompting me to quickly bow and clarify. The little princess speaks without thought. Aside from possessing a good voice, I have no other merits. The crown prince, with his dragon-like bearing, deserves a match of equal stature. I implore you to discern wisely. The East Palace is a treacherous place. I would rather avoid it. The Empress nodded. You are quite insightful. When a suitable match presents itself, I shall personally arrange your marriage. After the meeting, the little princess insisted on seeking an audience with her mother to voice her grievances. She pouted. What is so special about the minister? Are we to fear him?
Yunar.
If you like my brother, I shall certainly advocate for you. I smiled faintly, puzzled by her sudden change in demeanor towards me. After much hesitation, she finally explained. It turned out that on that day at the horse grounds, she had realized I had intentionally let her discover the affair between Zheng Yi and Chu Waner. Though I was furious, I am grateful you made me reconsider in time. Otherwise, marrying such a frivolous man would have been my ruin. And thanks to you, I returned to the palace safely. Had I truly perished, I would have missed out on all the riches and glory.
I smiled her.
The little princess, truly innocent and carefree. Our interactions led us to become good friends. She claimed I was exceptionally clever, the first to escape a calamity from the Empress's grasp. Sister Yun, what exactly did you write in your note to the Empress? She has refused to tell me despite my persistent inquiries. I hesitated, just about to speak, when I heard someone calling from the entrance. The eldest lady has returned. The little princess, unwilling to see her, opted to leave through the back door. Chu Wana and Zheng Yi returned hand in hand. They appeared quite affectionate, with gifts for their return filling the courtyard. My parents' expressions softened somewhat. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, Chu Waner signaled for me to join her in the study. The door had yet to close when she eagerly inscribed on the paper, I hear you've been jilted by the Empress. Who in the capital would dare to marry one who has caught the prince's eye? Sister, your life is utterly ruined. I took a sip of tea, choosing silence. Her eyes gleamed with triumph as she continued, I am different. My husband dotes on me greatly. Soon, I shall be conferred a title, and eventually elevated to the rank of a county princess. In time, with my husband's affection and my elevated status, my parents will once again shower me with their love, while you will merely become the laughingstock of the capital. Chu Yunar, you are truly foolish, squandering a winning hand. If you beg me now, I might, out of sisterly compassion, persuade my husband to find you a colonel to marry in the army. With that, she snatched the teacup from my hands, drinking it down with self-satisfied glee. A sigh escaped my heart. Did she truly believe that choosing my path would lead to eternal bliss? Sister, do you truly intend to remain a mute for the rest of your life? Does your husband truly cherish a wife who cannot even utter a sound? How dull it must be in the bedroom. The smile on Chu Wani's face froze instantly. Since childhood, her voice had been sweet and melodious, bringing joy to our parents. Yet now, she opened her mouth, but no sound emerged. I spoke more softly, my words like whispers of a ghost. Do you not yearn to speak again? Her hands trembled with agitation, and her writing became frenzied, each stroke filled with malice.
Chu Yunar.
You owe me a debt that shall one day be repaid. Once my husband finds the antidote, I shall ensure you meet a most unkind fate. I let out a cold laugh. There exists but one antidote, which our father traded the ancestral home to acquire. Chu Waner was humiliated by my words. Chu Yunar, just wait. I shall not only seek the antidote, but also the poison. At that time, do not blame me for being ruthless. My gaze sharpened. It was evident that she was not jesting, and I understood her intent. Indeed, she would not let me off the hook. Very well. I had no intention of sparing her either. I abruptly pushed aside her sleeve, revealing the still vibrant red of her maiden's mark on the inner side of her arm. I scoffed, You are still a maiden? To my surprise, this remark proved more impactful than all her previous taunts combined. The darkness in Chiwani's eyes nearly spiraled into madness, and her brush fell to the ground with a forceful thud. She raised her hand as if to strike me. At that moment, the door swung open. It was Zheng Yi, who had suddenly received an imperial decree, commanding him to set forth to defend the borders against invading tribes. Our parents, unable to locate us, had sent someone to check on our whereabouts. "What are you doing? Cease this at once." I took the opportunity to leap into my mother's embrace, while my father trembled with anger. Out of respect for his new son-in-law, he merely ordered Chu Waner to accompany the general to the front lines. Zheng Yi, seemingly unaware of the preceding events, remained exceptionally gentle towards Chu Waner. He extended his hand to her, yet she hesitated. Zheng Ye's expression darkened immediately. "What? Does my wife refuse?" Chu Waner, caught in a dilemma, glanced back at the family door while our parents urged her on. She bit her lip, steeling herself as she climbed into the carriage. The moment our hands clasped, an unshakable chill crept into my heart. As I watched the carriage vanish into the alley, I smiled faintly in my mother's embrace. "Sister, soon you shall experience the joys of marital intimacy. However, while entering the military camp may be easy, surviving it will depend solely on your fortune. In my previous life, I wed Zheng Yi. He did not disdain my muteness and took me away from the capital's troubles, leading me to the borders. Just as I believed a happy life was about to unfold, the military camp became my greatest nightmare. I soon realized why this youthful general had achieved such remarkable feats at a tender age. He was impotent. In the city, on our wedding night, he did not touch me, and I thought it was out of respect and affection. However, upon returning to the camp, he drugged me. He discarded me to the barbarian captives, exchanging me for confidential information from their mouths. Each night spent with him left me in agony when I awoke, believing it was merely his excessive indulgence. I even kindly advised him to prioritize the nation's interests. Until one day, he drugged me again, but a guard accidentally spilled half of the potion. In a half-conscious state, I found myself lying among several barbarian men while he stood outside the cage, his hand in his trousers, his eyes reflecting a mix of pain and excitement. I was paralyzed with fear, tightly closing my eyes. It was then that I grasped why he had agreed to marry me, because my poisoned silence rendered me incapable of making any sound during intimacy. Thus, no one would uncover his perversion. My heart shattered. To survive, I endured 3 years of such a life, all for the day I could exact my revenge. Perhaps out of a lingering guilt, he exchanged his military achievements for my title as a noble lady. The Empress, determined to abandon the prince's consort, sought to provide my father, now a right minister, with an explanation, thus granting me the exception of being made a princess. When I visited the cold palace to see my sister, my intention was to unite against Zheng Yi. Yet, to my shock, she blamed her misfortunes on me. She caused my demise. In this rebirth, she sought to usurp my destiny from my past life, aspiring to be the victor in life. How absurd! 3 months later, I received a letter from her family, filled with venomous invectives. "Chu Yuner, you have caused me great suffering. You knew exactly what kind of person Zheng Yi was, yet you stood by and did nothing. You must have also been reborn. You know everything, yet you watched me fall." The subsequent lines echoed similar sentiments, all cursing me. I was surprised she had discovered it so quickly. It was a pity I could not witness her hysterical reaction. How could she blame me? This path was one she had chosen for herself. Good news came from my father's side. Juana was pregnant, and my parents finally felt relieved. I smiled faintly, lowering my gaze to my tea. This child would never see the light of day. How could Jingyi allow her to bear a barbarian's offspring? As expected, a month later, news of Chiwani's miscarriage reached us. My parents lamented heavily, turning their gaze towards me. "The prince is to marry tomorrow. You need not attend to spare yourself heartache." I obediently agreed. In a few days, it would be the Empress's birthday, and she had specifically requested for you to perform. Yuner, prepare well. Do not regret not marrying the prince. I understood their intentions. They wished for me to choose a suitor at the birthday feast. However, in this life, I had no plans to marry. On the day of the birthday feast, I was the last to take the stage. When it was my turn, the splendid attire my mother had prepared was inexplicably missing, and the steward urged me to appear. With no other option, I borrowed a guard's armor and sword. The originally planned musical accompaniment shifted from long song to endless longing. The Empress was furious, her face contorted with displeasure. I suppressed my inner turmoil and performed sword dance as the former Gongsun Dajang. Soon, the palace musicians caught on and accompanied my performance. Upon finishing, I knelt on the ground, refusing to rise for a long time. The hall fell silent, all gazes fixated upon me. A mere daughter of a minister dared to act so brazenly before the Empress. They believed I was dissatisfied with the Empress's arrangements, infatuated with the prince, and deliberately seeking attention. The Empress's countenance darkened, and she waved her hand, commanding my removal from the palace, never to return. This decree was akin to a death sentence for a family like mine. The noble ladies spectating stifled laughter behind their hands. Who does not know the Empress detests endless longing? The last person who sang it is buried 3 feet under. You brought this upon yourself. Indeed, a daughter of a minor official, lacking vision, can never rise to the occasion. She is indeed clever, having transformed her performance into a sword dance. Alas, this is a birthday banquet, and such displays of blades and weaponry are deemed inauspicious. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of a female court musician, her face adorned with a triumphant expression. It was none other than Chiwaner. She had somehow managed to escape. This was dire. The little princess was in a tizzy, yet the Empress paid no heed to her words. Soon enough, palace attendants viciously seized me. I struggled and cried out, "Your Majesty, do you still recall the note I once penned for you? The plan has shifted, and the situation has grown urgent." The Empress paused, momentarily taken aback, and approached to inquire further. I relinquished my sword and was brought to her side. She dismissed the attendants, including the little princess. I hastily conveyed my suspicions to her. Zhang Yi had betrayed us, embedding spies within the palace. My attire had been stolen, and the performance altered. These were all orchestrated by them. However, the Empress remained unconvinced. The palace is heavily fortified. How could there be spies? Do not attempt to deceive me. No matter how I pleaded, she refused to listen, commanding that I be dragged away and punished. I was led out, bloodied and bruised, while the little princess wept inconsolably. Upon returning home, the imperial decree arrived. My father was dismissed from his position, and he held the edict with reverence before collapsing to the ground. The entire city buzzed with gossip about me, labeling me a harbinger of misfortune, a curse upon my sister and parents. Everyone avoided our household, and no one dared to visit. Struggling to rise from my bed, I rubbed my sore backside. Fortunately, thanks to the healing ointment gifted by the little princess, I had fully recovered. Clad in the attire of a young eunuch, I slipped into a carriage and, under the cover of darkness, crawled through a dog hole into the palace. An hour later, chaos erupted in the cold palace. Startled maidservants rushed to extinguish the flames, leaving the Empress's chamber deserted. Suddenly, dozens of flaming arrows were loosed, yet the Empress remained unperturbed. Applying her makeup by the firelight, a shadow flitted past and appeared behind her. Gazing into the bronze mirror, she caught sight of a face strikingly similar to my own, and she was momentarily stunned.
Zuyuner?
As if sensing something amiss, she called out again, "Chiwaner?" To my astonishment, Chiwaner spoke. "It is I, Your Majesty. Did you ever imagine that you would meet your demise at my hand? How unfortunate." She had indeed found the antidote. With a malicious glint in her eyes, Chiwaner traced a small blade across the Empress's face. "I could have become a paragon of motherhood like you, but you ruined it all. You imprisoned me in the cold palace and cast me into the lotus pond. I suffered a wretched death. Now it is your turn to experience that flavor." The Empress paled in horror. "I did no such thing."
Chiwaner feignait de surprise.
"Oh, that was in a past life. Nonetheless, you still must die." Before she finished speaking, she thrust the dagger violently into the Empress. Blood quickly stained her garments. The little princess gripped the whip tightly, and I hastily restrained her, signaling that the moment was not yet ripe. In truth, in my previous life, I had stumbled upon Zheng Ye's treacherous intentions. I sought to send word to the palace, but Zheng Ye kept a vigilant watch over me. Thus, I intended to reach the cold palace, relying on my sister Chiwaner to relay the message. Regrettably, she had schemed to cast me into a beast's cage. In this life, I resolved to take the initiative. I detailed everything in a note for the Empress. Concerned for the stability of the realm, she dispatched someone to investigate, only to discover that my claims were indeed true. However, the spectacle in the palace was a ruse we had orchestrated, waiting for the enemy to let down their guard so we could ensnare them. Before long, Zhang Yi forced his way into the palace. In less than an hour, his subordinates stood in the Great Hall. Congratulations, General. The treacherous rebels have been executed. Zhang Yi sat upon the throne, with Chu Wan'er at his side. She scoffed, "You have all misspoken. You must now refer to him as Your Majesty." Zhang Yi had ascended to the throne, and she was undoubtedly the new empress. She now stood one rank below none, basking in glory greater than in my past life. Yet, alas, this splendor was as ephemeral as a bubble, soon to be ruthlessly burst. The little princess and I conveyed our intelligence to the crown prince, who swiftly surrounded the palace. The appearance of the emperor and empress bewildered Zhang Yi's men, and the tide of battle began to shift. Zhang Yi, gritting his teeth, realizing escape was futile, drew his sword and viciously struck at Chu Wan'er. "You scoundrel! Did you not claim that the empress and prince were dead?" She shook her head vigorously, spitting blood. "I truly killed the empress. As for the prince, my dear friend, the chancellor's daughter, has already poisoned him." It turned out that Zhang Yi's condition for providing her with the antidote was to eliminate the empress and the prince. The little princess sneered. "The prince has long seen through that wretched woman's scheme. Your ambition to usurp the throne is a mere delusion." But Zhang Yi was unconvinced. Blinded by rage, he hurled Chu Wan'er away like a rag, using her as a shield, while he sought to escape. Recalling the grievances of my past life, I could no longer restrain my hatred. I raised my hand and shot an arrow from my sleeve, piercing his neck. In that instant he fell to the ground, his eyes bloodshot and fixated upon me. Yet, with the arrow lodged in his throat, he could utter no sound. I gazed coldly at him, as if I were witnessing the self I had been toyed with in my previous life. He had once called me a wretched creature who could not even scream. I had been pregnant 3 times, yet he had bound me to a horse, forcing me to miscarry. With this thought, I swiftly severed his tendons and ligaments with my blade. At that moment, the prince had already cornered the traitors, capturing a few barbarian men, administering aphrodisiacs, and then tossing them into a cage. I requested this of the prince, and he regarded me with a flicker of surprise but ultimately acquiesced. The little princess bound Chu Wan'er with a golden whip. "Sister Yun'er, what shall we do with this wretch?" I lowered my gaze and coldly smiled, naturally. "We shall leave her fate to the empress." Upon learning that Chu Wan'er had plotted her death, the empress's complexion turned ashen, her brows knitting in fury. "Throw this wretch into the beast garden."
Alice, 2 venner er trolig panicked.
She knelt and pleaded for mercy, tears streaming down her face. "Your Majesty, I am wronged. The one who truly seeks to harm you is my sister, Chu Yun'er. My lady, do you not wonder why I was suddenly able to speak? It is all thanks to Chu Yun'er giving me the antidote. We share the same surname. We are sisters born of the same mother. Because she could not become the crown princess, she harbored jealousy towards you and conspired with me to rebel, only to turn traitor when the opportunity was lost. At this point, she still sought to frame me. All eyes turned towards me. Even the little princess took a half step back. I smiled coldly within. From my bosom, I produced a sealed letter and handed it to the eunuch. It contained a detailed map of the barbarian palace and strategic plans, all drawn from my memories of my past life. The prince received it with great eagerness, and the empress's expression softened considerably.
He approached Chu Wan'er,
observing her trembling like a leaf, and lifted her chin with the bloodied dagger. "Chu Wan'er, even if you are reborn, your fate will only be more tragic. Due to my valor in protecting the emperor, I was bestowed the title of princess. My father's health improved, and he was promoted. In a short span, suitors thronged our door. News from the palace indicated that Zhang Yi had confessed everything, aligning perfectly with my account. Yet, for reasons unknown, Chu Wan'er had preserved her life. The little princess seethed with indignation. Who knows? She sang the song longing all the way, and the emperor, unable to bear her death, cast her into the cold palace. I lowered my gaze and sipped my tea, saying nothing. The little princess tentatively inquired, "What was the reason for your and Chu Wan'er's meanness back then? And from where did she obtain the antidote?" I smiled faintly. At that time, Chu Wanner and I had gone to the Lantern Festival. On our way, we encountered a noblewoman from the capital being abducted. After returning and drinking a bowl of water, my voice was lost. The little princess, with a naive expression, asked, "Did you see that noblewoman's face?" I stared at her exquisite visage, momentarily dazed, then shook my head. I did not. The little princess appeared to exhale in relief, gently pushing the delicacies toward me. "Please indulge, for I personally prepared these. Even my father has not had the privilege." A sigh escaped my heart as I picked up a plum blossom cake and consumed it under the watchful gaze of the princess. With a satisfied countenance, she departed. The following day, I found myself inexplicably mute, declining all visitors. Thereafter, the little princess never sought my company again, only sending a eunuch with a letter. "I am sorry. Dear Sister Eunuch, you know too much. I hope you do not harbor resentment against me. I bore her no ill will. It was she who had been abducted that day, and it was the queen who had poisoned us. For the sake of royal dignity, they chose to sacrifice me and Chu Wanner. As a subject, I could only resign myself to fate, for if I did not partake, the entire Chu family, numbering in the hundreds, would likely meet with calamity." Subsequently, Chu Wanner, blessed with a voice akin to that of the late empress, garnered the emperor's favor. In due course, she was bestowed the title of imperial concubine. During her visit home to pay respects, she deliberately left me in the study. I was also indebted to my sister. Had it not been for her, I would never have encountered Jingyi, nor would I have uncovered his secrets. And I certainly would not have one day sought his assistance in procuring the antidote. She approached with a light step, her slender fingers delicately encircling my neck. I bowed slightly, raising the tea above my head. Yet, she remained vigilant. "You drink first." I complied with her request. Seeing that I was unharmed, Chu Wanner appeared quite pleased. She took the cup, sipped twice, and just as she was about to erupt into triumphant laughter, a cry of agony escaped her lips.
What have you given me?
Why can I not utter a sound? Of course, it was poison. I produced an antidote and consumed it before her eyes. "I owe you much, dear sister. I was reborn slightly earlier than you. Thus, I did not drink from that bowl, nor did I consume the antidote, which I have preserved. The tea you just drank was brewed from that very water, while the morsel I consumed was the antidote. When would grievances be avenged? Perhaps it was time for you to meet your end first." Her brow furrowed in an instant, her visage twisting into a grotesque mask, her gaze venomous. Yet, I felt no fear, for she had lost her voice. Upon returning to the palace, the concubine could no longer sing longing, and the emperor, accusing her of treason, confined her to the cold palace. The following day, her lifeless body surfaced in the lotus pond. Simultaneously, the second miss of the Prime Minister's residence inexplicably perished. The emperor, mourning the loss of two cherished daughters from my father's family, arranged for my burial with the honors befitting a princess. Little did they know, I had shed my former identity and concealed myself in Jiangnan. I meticulously documented the poetry I encountered during my travels, setting it to melodies that would resonate through the ages. The end of this tale. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, please remember to like and subscribe.
Until we meet again in the next story.